Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Fables. The sun has tucked itself away for the night, and the great dark blanket of the sky has been decorated with 1,000 tiny twinkling stars. It is a time for quiet, a time for rest, and a time for stories. So find your most comfortable, coziest spot, let your body grow heavy and relaxed, and let your mind become as peaceful as the still night air. Tonight, our adventure takes us high, into the branches of an ancient tree, where a little creature is about to discover that even the smallest among us can carry the greatest of lights. Let your breathing grow soft and slow as our story begins. High up in the sturdy, twisted arms of an ancient oak tree, an oak so old that it seemed to remember the world when it was new, there was a hollow. It was not just any hole in a tree, but a perfect, round, and deeply cozy home, a place that had been a nursery for generations upon generations of barn owls. The floor of this safe haven was not made of rough wood, but was lined with the softest, greenest moss, collected piece by piece by a loving mother and father from the sun-dappled forest floor. This mossy carpet was as soft as a cloud and smelled of damp earth and sweet, clean rain. Tucked into this moss were the softest, most delicate, downy feathers from his mother's breast, each one a tiny, silken promise of warmth and safety. And woven in between these feathers were tiny, fragrant sprigs of pine, gathered from the highest branches, which made the entire hollow smell of deep, peaceful woods and happy, sleepy dreams. In this perfect, safe little room in the sky nestled a pile of sleepy, fluffy owlets. They were a jumble of soft, white down, their little chests rising and falling in a gentle, unified rhythm, a silent symphony of slumber. They dreamed their little owlet dreams of chasing fat, juicy beetles that tasted of moonlight, and of the wonderful day when their own strong, silent wings would carry them like ghosts through the night sky. But amongst all this peaceful sleep, one pair of eyes was wide open, as round and as dark as two polished river stones. It was Pip. Pip was the smallest of the brood, his feathers still more like the fluffy, white down of a milkweed seed than the sleek, silent, and powerful feathers of his parents. His eyes, two enormous, dark, and liquid pools of deep curiosity and a secret, hidden worry, were fixed on the great, dark world that lay just outside the comforting circle of his home, while his siblings found their deepest comfort in the warm, feathery closeness of the nest, snuggling down into a sleepy pile as soon as the sun had set. Pip would stay awake. He loved the safety and the warmth of his family's hollow. He loved the familiar, comforting smell of pine and feathers, and the soft, rhythmic sound of his sleeping family's breathing. He especially loved the sound of his father's gentle, low hoot returning in the deep of the night, a sound that meant all was well, a sound that meant they were safe. But a secret lived inside his tiny, feathered heart, a secret that kept his big eyes open when all the others were closed. He was a creature of the night, a child of the moon and the stars, yet he was a little bit afraid of the dark, not the cozy, familiar dark of his hollow, which was a darkness filled with love and warmth. He was afraid of the great, wide unknown, darkness that stretched out forever and ever, just beyond the edge of his safe, round doorway. He would sit there for hours, a tiny, silent watcher, his little head turning this way and that, listening and waiting for a dawn that for a young owl was still many, many long, dark hours away. The deep, inky blackness of the forest seemed to breathe a slow, ancient, and mysterious breath. And he watched it with a mixture of a deep, trembling fear and a quiet, unexplainable longing to be a part of it all. From his doorway in the sky, the world seemed so very big and so very dark. It was a world of giants, a world of shadows. The other trees in the forest were like great, sleeping titans, their massive, leafy arms reaching up as if to scratch the belly of the moon. Their leaves, in the gentle night breeze, were not a single, happy rustle, but 1,000 different whispers, each one telling a different, secret story that he couldn't quite understand. He would listen to the sounds of the deep woods, and his fluffy feathers would prickle with a nervous energy. Far below, the sudden, sharp snap of a twig on the forest floor would sound as loud as a giant's footstep in the deep silence. He would freeze, his little body tense, his heart beating a fast, frantic rhythm against his ribs. Was it a friendly badger waddling home to its set with a belly full of juicy worms? Or was it something else, something with sharp teeth and hungry eyes? A distant, lonely cry would float up through the trees. A long, mournful sound, the cry of a wandering fox calling out to the moon. To his parents, this was a familiar song, a normal and comforting part of the night's great, peaceful orchestra. But to Pip, it sounded like a cry of loneliness, a sound that echoed the small, secret fear in his own heart. He would watch the shadows dance and play, and his active, worried imagination would turn them into strange, creeping creatures. The shadow of a swinging branch, swaying in the wind, would become a long, bony arm, reaching out to grab him from his safe little home. The shadow of a cluster of leaves, rustling together, would become a many-eyed beast, its dark eyes watching him from below. He knew, in his logical little owl brain, the part of him that was his father's son, that it was just the wind and the trees playing their nightly games. But his heart didn't know that. His heart only knew that he was very small, and the world outside was very, very big and full of a deep, profound darkness he did not yet understand. He would watch the familiar, comforting shape of the full moon rise over the treetops, a beautiful, perfect, silver coin in the velvet sky. He would see its gentle light touch the tops of the highest leaves, painting them with a soft, silvery frost. And he would wish, with all his might, that its beautiful, silvery light was not just a gentle lamp, but a great, big, magical floodlight that could reach down into every single dark and shadowy corner of the forest and show him that there was nothing to be afraid of at all. Tonight, as Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes and soft, downy white feathers, sat at his usual post, a tiny, fluffy sentinel watching the familiar shadows play their scary games, something new and wonderful happened. Great full moon, which had been sailing serenely through the sea of stars, like a magnificent silver ship, seemed to pause in its journey. It stopped right above his ancient oak tree, its gentle, silvery light seeming to focus and intensify. And then, it did something it had never done before. It gathered its beautiful, ancient light, a light that had watched over the world for a million nights, and it sent down a single, perfect, beautiful beam. It was not like the scattered, dappled moonlight that usually filtered through the leaves, a gentle, watery light that made the shadows dance. This was a solid, focused, and purposeful beam of light, a silver road that stretched all the way from the moon's own glowing face, down, down, down through the cool night air, right to the very edge of Pip's Hollow. The light was not harsh or bright. It was soft and gentle, and it felt as warm and as comforting as his mother's wing when she tucked him in for his daytime sleep. The light filled the entrance to his home, chasing away the deepest, darkest shadows inside, and it wrapped around Pip in a soft, personal spotlight, making every one of his downy, white feathers shimmer and shine. He blinked his big, dark eyes in wonder. The moon, the great, silent queen of the night sky, the beautiful, distant face he had watched for so many nights, seemed to be looking right at him, and only at him, as if she knew his name, as if she understood the secret, fearful beating of his tiny heart. And then he heard a voice. It was not a sound that he heard with his little owl ears, which were so good at hearing the tiny rustle of a mouse in the leaves far below. This was a voice that he felt in his heart, a voice that bloomed in his mind, like a soft, glowing flower. It sounded like the gentle chiming of 1,000 tiny, silver bells, or the whisper of starlight on a cold, clear and perfectly still night. "Greetings, little one," the voice of the moon whispered, and the voice was full of a kindness as old as the sky itself. "I see you. I have watched you for many nights, little Pip. I have watched you stay awake when your brothers and sisters are dreaming. I see your kind heart, a heart that worries for the world outside. And I see the secret fear that keeps you from the world you were born to know, the beautiful, quiet world of the night. But I also see a courage inside you that is brighter than you can imagine, a little spark of bravery that is waiting for a chance to glow. You wish my light could reach every corner of the forest, and tonight, little owl, you are the one who will help me." Pip was so astonished, he could only puff up his fluffy feathers until he looked like a round, white ball of pure surprise. He, Pip, the smallest and most timid of all the owlets, the one who was afraid of a swaying shadow, how could he possibly help the great, magnificent, and wise old moon? The moonbeam that shone on his doorway began to shimmer and dance, its solid-looking light turning into a swirling, twisting ribbon of silver smoke. The very end of it, a piece about the length of a small, fallen branch, began to spin and coalesce, gathering the light into a single, solid object. Then it broke away from the main beam and solidified, its light becoming a soft, contained, and steady glow. It floated gently in the air before him, a perfect, silvery wand of pure, captured moonlight, humming with a quiet, peaceful energy that made the air around it feel warm and safe. "There is a place in this forest," the moon whispered, her voice now a gentle guide in his mind, a soft map of sound. "It is a deep and hidden hollow, a place so sheltered by the ancient, overlapping branches of the oldest trees that my light has never been able to reach it. It is a place where a very special flower, the moondrop, is waiting to bloom. It has been waiting for 100 years, but it cannot bloom without my touch. I am too far away, and my light is too broad to find the tiny opening in the canopy. But you, brave little owl, with your small wings and your kind heart, you can be my carrier. You can take this piece of my light to the flower for me." Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes and soft, downy white feathers, looked at the beautiful, glowing moonbeam, which pulsed with a soft, steady heartbeat of light, as if it were alive. Then he looked at the great, dark, and mysterious forest outside, the world of strange sounds and creeping shadows. His little heart was beating like a drum against his ribs. He had never flown out of the hollow alone before. He had only ever practiced by hopping and flapping from one side of the nest to the other, a clumsy dance that always ended with him tumbling into his sleeping siblings. He was scared. His wings felt so small and weak, and the air outside looked so big and so empty. But then he thought of the little, lonely flower waiting in the darkness for 100 years. just for a single touch of light so it could finally bloom. He knew what it felt like to be small and in the dark. Taking the deepest breath of his short little life, a breath that made all his fluffy feathers stand on end, he reached out with his small, sharp talons, grasped the warm, smooth, glowing moonbeam, and with a brave, determined flutter of his wings, he pushed off from the edge of his home and flew out into the great, wide night. The moonbeam was not heavy at all. It was as light as a single, forgotten feather, and it pulsed with a gentle, calming warmth that flowed through his talons, up his legs and into his very being, soothing his frantic, beating heart. As Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes and soft, downy white feathers flew, the light from the moonbeam he carried shone down, creating a soft, moving circle of safety all around him. It was his own personal bubble of moonlight. The dark, scary shadows he had worried about now looked soft and gentle in the silvery glow. He saw that the long, reaching branch was not a bony arm, but a beautiful, moss-covered perch for a sleeping robin. The many-eyed beast in the leaves was just a cluster of ferns, each one holding a tiny, perfect dewdrop that sparkled in his light. The strange, rustling sounds of the forest no longer sounded frightening, but simply like the sleepy murmurs of the other creatures of the night, turning over in their leafy beds. He was not just flying through the darkness, he was carrying his own personal circle of moonlight with him, a little bubble of safety and peace, and it made him feel braver than he had ever felt before. "Follow the path that only you can see," the moon's gentle voice whispered in his heart, a soft echo from far above, a guiding thought to keep him on his way. Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes and soft, downy white feathers, looked down, and he saw it. Winding through the trees below, a path that had not been there a moment before, was a faint, shimmering trail of silver dust, like a tiny, secret river of fallen stars that only he was allowed to see. It flowed over branches, under roots, and around the trunks of the great sleeping trees. He knew this was the way to the hidden hollow. With a new sense of purpose, he angled his wings and followed the beautiful, sparkling path deeper and deeper into the parts of the woods he had never seen before. He was no longer just a lost little owlet. He was a messenger, a lamplighter, a moon carrier, on a very important, secret mission for the Queen of the Night herself, and his heart was full of a quiet, steady pride. The shimmering path led him to a part of the forest that was older and quieter than any other. The trees here were ancient giants, their branches so thick and their leaves so numerous that they were woven together tightly overhead, forming a complete, living roof. And in the center of this circle of old trees was a deep, sunken hollow, a perfect bowl in the earth, as if a giant had once gently pressed his thumb into the ground. Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes, and soft, downy white feathers, perched on a branch at its edge and looked down. The moon had been right. Down in this hidden, secret place, it was completely dark. Not a single, stray moonbeam could find its way through the thick, leafy canopy. It was a pocket of perfect, untouched night, a place of deep, profound silence, where the only sound was the soft, slow breathing of the sleeping earth itself. And it was here that he knew he would find the sleeping flower. For a moment, Pip's old fear returned. The darkness below was so complete, so absolute. It was a darkness deeper than any he had ever seen from his safe, high hollow. It seemed to swallow all light and all sound. But then he looked at the beautiful, steady light he was carrying in his own 2 talons. He remembered the lonely flower, waiting patiently for its one chance to bloom. He remembered his promise to the moon. He took a deep breath, a breath that filled his entire fluffy body with a new, warm courage, and with his wings held wide and silent, he glided down from the branch, a single, small, and very brave star, descending into a patch of earth that had never before known the light. The darkness parted before him, pushed back by the gentle, silvery glow of the precious moonbeam he carried. He landed as softly as a falling feather on the cool, damp, mossy floor of the hollow. He held up his light, and his little heart gave a leap of pure wonder. There, in the very center of the hollow, growing from a bed of the softest, darkest moss, was the moondrop flower. It was even more beautiful than he had imagined. Its shimmering, pearlescent white petals were curled up tightly into a perfect sleeping bud, and it seemed to him that he could feel it dreaming. It was waiting. It had been waiting for a very long time, down here in the quiet dark, surrounded by the sleeping roots of the great trees, just waiting for a single, gentle touch of moonlight so that it could finally, after 100 years, wake up and bloom. Pip hopped closer, his little heart filled with a sense of reverence and purpose. This was it. This was the moment his whole journey had been for. He felt as if the entire forest, from the deepest root to the highest leaf, was holding its breath. Watching him, he lifted the moonbeam high, its light pure and steady, and then, with the greatest care, with a touch as gentle as a moth's wing, he softly, carefully, touched the tip of the pure, silvery light to the tip of the sleeping flower. Bud, a soft, humming sound, like a tiny, sleepy chorus, filled the air, and a brilliant, beautiful light flowed from the moonbeam and into the very heart of the flower. The entire bud began to glow with a powerful inner light, a light that had been waiting for this very touch to awaken from its long, 100-year sleep. And then, slowly, majestically, the moondrop began to bloom. One by one, its shimmering, pearly petals, which looked as if they were woven from moonlight and mother of pearl, began to unfurl. They opened with a slowness that seemed to hold awe, the patience of 100 years, releasing a sweet, beautiful fragrance into the air, a scent like night-blooming jasmine and fresh, clean rain. The light from its center grew stronger and stronger, a pure, clean, and gentle white light that pushed back every last trace of darkness in the hollow. It was no longer a dark and forgotten place. It was now the brightest, most magical place. In the entire forest, Pip watched, completely mesmerized, his big, dark eyes reflecting the flower's incredible, loving light. He had done it. He had brought the moon to the flower. In the very heart of the fully opened flower, there was a cluster of the most magical pollen Pip, a very young barn owl with soft, downy white feathers, had ever seen. It was not yellow and dusty, but was made of tiny, shimmering, silver specks of pure light. As the flower finished its magnificent bloom, this silver dust, this pollen of dreams, began to rise from its center. It lifted into the air and began to swirl around the little hollow like a gentle, glittering snowstorm, a magical gift of thanks from the flower to the forest, and to the little owl who had been so brave. The glittering dust rose higher and higher, a silent, sparkling river flowing up out of the hollow. It began to drift through the branches of the great, old trees that stood guard, settling on the leaves and the bark. Soon, the entire dark corner of the forest, the place that had always been the most filled with shadows, was now filled with a soft, twinkling, silver light. The deep, impenetrable shadows were gone, replaced by a gentle, starry glow. The moondrop was sharing its light, its happiness, with the whole forest, making the darkest place a place of gentle, magical beauty. A few of the silver specks of light drifted down and landed on Pip's own soft, fluffy feathers. They clung to his downy chest, and suddenly he too was shimmering and sparkling with a gentle, magical light. It was a gift from the flower, a little thank you for the brave little owl who had brought it the moonlight. Pip looked down at himself, and for the first time, he felt like he was a part of the night's magic, not just a visitor watching from the shadows. The light felt warm and comforting, a tiny constellation on his own little body. His mission was complete. The moonbeam had been delivered, and the flower had bloomed, sharing its gift with the whole forest. With a heart full of a quiet, deep joy, Pip spread his wings. They felt stronger now, more sure. He flew up out of the brightly lit hollow and back into the familiar woods. His journey home was very different. He no longer needed the moonbeam to light his way, for now he carried his own soft, shimmering light with him, a little beacon of his own bravery. He landed softly on the edge of his own cozy hollow. He looked out at the great, dark forest, the same forest that had seemed so big and so scary just a little while ago. But it didn't look scary anymore. He saw the deep shadows not as hiding places for frightening things, but as quiet, peaceful places for creatures to rest. He heard the snap of a twig and knew it was just a sleepy badger making its way home. He understood the night now. It was not something to be afraid of. It was just a different kind of quiet, a different kind of beautiful, and it was his to explore. With a soft, silent flutter of his shimmery wings, he slipped back inside his warm, familiar home. He snuggled in between his two sleeping brothers, and they shuffled in their sleep to make room for him. He tucked his head under his wing, feeling the deep, peaceful warmth of his family all around him. His great adventure was over. He had been brave, he had been kind, and now the little owl who had once been afraid of the dark was ready to close his eyes and have the most beautiful, peaceful, and magical dreams. And as Pip, a very young barn owl with big, dark, curious eyes and soft downy white feathers slept, his dreams were no longer filled with nervous whispers or scary, dark shapes. For the first time, he dreamed of flying. He dreamed he was soaring. High above the canopy of the forest, his wings strong and sure, catching the gentle currents of the night air. He flew through great, soft, silvery clouds and danced in the sky with the twinkling stars. In his dream, the great, wide, dark world was not a scary place, but a beautiful, endless playground. And he was not a small, timid owlet, but a brave and confident explorer of the night. The silvery dust of the moondrop flower clung to him even in his dream, and he left a trail of gentle, shimmering starlight wherever he flew, painting his own happy story across the deep, velvet sky. His mother, a wise old owl with feathers the color of soft, brown bark, looked at her smallest child. She saw a new light in his eyes. It was not the shimmering light of dream pollen, but a steady, quiet light of confidence. She did not know of his secret journey or of his promise to the moon, but she knew that somewhere in the night, her timid little owlet had found his courage. She gave him a gentle, loving nuzzle, a silent "I'm so proud of you" that filled Pip's heart with warmth. That night, when his parents flew out to hunt, Pip did not stay behind. With a brave leap, he followed them out into the cool night air. His wings caught the wind, and suddenly he was soaring. It was more wonderful than even his best dreams. The wind rushed silently past his feathers, and the world spread out below him like a great, dark, sparkling map. The little owl, who had been afraid of the dark, was now a true creature of the night. And now, just as Pip has found his courage and is at peace with the night, it is time for you to find your own peaceful rest. It is time for your own sleepy adventure to begin, a gentle journey into the quiet, magical world of your dreams, where you can be as brave and as wonderful as you can imagine. Imagine you are snuggled in the softest nest in the world, a nest lined with the downy feathers of 1,000 sleepy owlets. Feel the incredible softness all around you. Your pillow is soft, your blankets are soft, and your bed is holding you in a gentle, cozy embrace. Let your whole body relax into this wonderful, soft, and peaceful feeling. Listen to the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Let it be as quiet and as peaceful as the sound of an owl's wings on a still night. A long, soft breath in, a long, silent breath out. This gentle, peaceful rhythm is a lullaby, a special song just for you, and it is helping your whole body unwind and get ready for a deep and wonderful sleep. The world is growing quiet now. It is a quiet filled with gentle, sleepy lights. The soft light of the moon, the twinkling light of the distant stars, and the secret, magical light of the moondrop flower, glowing peacefully in its hidden hollow. Let your own mind become as quiet and as peaceful as this gentle, starlit world. If you have any little worries left over from the day, just imagine they are tiny, fluffy feathers, and you can gently blow them away, watching them float off on a soft, sleepy breeze, drifting farther and farther away until they have disappeared completely. Your mind is clear now, and light, and ready for peaceful dreams. Thank you for flying with us at Bedtime Fables. There is always a new, magical adventure waiting for us in the quiet of the night. If you would like to join, you can ask your grown-up to tap the subscribe button so we can all meet again. Until then, may you always find the courage to carry your own light. Good night.